We deal with percents all the time, and sometimes there's a little bit of confusion about percent. So let's just make sure everything is clear here. Percent really just means per 100. So you can always turn a percent into a fraction. 25% is really just 25 per 100, or 25 over 100. And that's easy enough to write as a decimal, which is just simply 25 100ths, or 0.25. You can also write it as a reduced fraction, as a quarter. 200%, what does that mean? Well, it's again just 200 over 100, which is simply the integer 2. So in other words, doubling. Right? If I have 200% of what I had last year, I've doubled whatever it is I have. Now, here's where the confusion arises. Sometimes we're dealing with percents, absolute percents, and sometimes we're dealing with percentage changes. So if we have a quantity that goes from 50 to 60, it increases to 60, how do we represent this as a percent change? Well, one way to do this is just to say, well, the new price or the new quantity is 60, the old quantity is 50. Now, we can do a number of things with this. We can convert it into a fraction with a denominator of 100. I've made it particularly easy. And you just simply have to multiply this by 2 over 2, and you get 120 over 100. So any fraction over 100 can be converted very easily into a percentage. It's just simply 120%. Now, here's where the confusion arises. You can say that 60 is 120% of 50. But normally what you want to know is, how much is the increase? How much has it gone up by? So normally we would want to write here just the increase, which in this case is 10. So 10 over 50 is 20 over 100, which is 20%. So here we can say the increase is 20%. Now, look at those two numbers, 120% and 20%. There's obviously a relationship between them. You can get one from the other. If you think of no change as being 100%, if I have 100% of what I had last year, I haven't had any change. Then any number bigger than 100% just represents an increase. So if I have 120% now of what I had last year, or if the price is 120% of what it was last month, it's gone up by 20%. Let's try it again for a decrease. So if a new price or a new quantity is 40, the old price, old quantity is 80. 40 over 80 is, again, fairly easy to convert. It's 50 over 100, which is 50%. So we can say that the amount we have now is 50% of what we had before. But again, we're probably going to be interested in the change. Now, turns out the change is 50%. We've gone down by 50%. So here, the 20% represents an increase. Here, the 50% essentially represents two things. It represents how much I had. Now, if I start at 100% and I go down by 50%, I'm at 50%. So this is a 50% decrease. So working with percents, one thing I didn't do is convert these into decimals. That's going to be very, very valuable for problems later on, especially dealing with interest. So 120% can be written as 1.2. And 50% can be written as 0.5. So HST, dreaded tax on everything you buy, is 12%. Now, the way a lot of people calculate their final bills is they will take whatever the bill is, they'll multiply it by 12% to figure out the tax, and then they'll add it. But really, you can do this all in one step, because what you're talking about is an increase of 12%. Whatever you've spent at the restaurant or in the store, you're going to increase that by 12%. So you're starting at 100%, and you're going to go up 12% to 112%. That, as a decimal, is 1.12. So if you're in the restaurant, you can pull out your calculator. If you have a $100 bill and you multiply that by 1.12, you end up with a final bill of $112. The $100 for the food plus $12 for the HST. We're going to revisit this in much more detail when we get into some interest problems.